Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause, joined by John McMullen. Week 10, game week, everybody. Eagles versus Cowboys. Big division rival here coming up this weekend. Doesn't quite feel like a Cowboys week, but we will play the game nonetheless. Johnny Mac, how you doing in this Football Friday, brother?
Trying to get some juice. Typically, you don't need some juice for Dallas and Philadelphia, but
Yeah,
now
true.
it's Dallas and Washington. Everybody's looking ahead. It's human nature, but not a good thing.
Well, two straight NFC East games in 5 days. Johnny Mac had, I think that has some effect on it also. I know Dallas is banged up, but you never want to play down an opponent, and you never want to put the cart before the horse when it comes to a victory. And I think I know this Dallas team is banged up. They don't look very good, but you don't want to write them off. Go out there and handle business, and then they got to look ahead.
As I say, it's human nature. I don't like to call them trap games. I like to call them human nature games. But
right.
I mean, if it's just the fan base, that's fine. But if it's the players, that's what you got to worry about. And hopefully they're locked in because, the NFL, we see it all the time. Things like that happen. So as long as the players are locked in and not worried, not looking ahead, I think you're going to be fine. And, they're taught that, they're drilled into their heads, but that's why I call it human nature.
Yeah.
Everybody can say that, but bottom line is anytime you're facing a backup quarterback, there's that natural reaction of sort of letting out a breath and saying, oh, all right, we're going to have a little bit easier of a path. So it is something, maybe I'm trying to get some juice for the Cowboys and get this rivalry heated up. But right now, it doesn't feel like a typical, especially considering the Eagles haven't won there since 2017, I believe, 27. And they've been getting, not just losing, they've been getting whacked when they go down there, typically losing by about 16, 17 points a game over that span. So
yeah, well, Cowboys have been getting throttled in their own home this year. They've lost a couple games by a wide margin. We're talking 30 plus.
Yeah, they're averaging. They're giving up a ton of points at home. It's very strange because usually very difficult place to play. Not as strange now with the injuries.
Team, John. I just don't think they're a good team. I know it's a tough
No,
place
it
to
seems
play,
that
but they're not a
way.
good team.
Obviously now there's some, when you start losing your star players, I mean, that explains a lot of it. But even before that, they weren't playing like most people expected. So I think that's fair to say. And Mike Zimmer, yeah, man. Ooh, that guy used to be the guy. He used to be Vic Fangio, believe it or not. Everybody copying his A-gap stuff, and game seems to have passed him by a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, both of us got an older coordinator right on defense, and one of them's working out, at least for so far, with Vic Fangio in Philly and Mike Zimmer. I don't know what's going on with that defense. They're giving up the second most points in the NFL. They are not good, John McMullen. Not good. Should be a good day for the Eagles offense to kind of find some rhythm and get going.
Yeah, hopefully. I know they're hoping to get Micah back, and it looks like he's going to be able to play. So that's big for them. Deron Bland, though, hasn't practiced this week, so it doesn't look like he's coming back this week, unless there's something miraculous going on today. Trayvon Diggs is limited, but he's got a calf injury. I know all about those. That I harken back to Russell Wilson. Oh, he might play, and he's gone for 6 weeks or whatever it was. A lot of NFL's got to tighten up on those injury reports, man, because they were bullshitting about Christian McCaffrey early in the season. They were bullshitting about Russell Wilson early in the season. They got to tighten that stuff up. But I get some of that kind of feel with Trayvon Diggs. So if you don't have either of them, that's a concern. I think CD Lamb's going to try to play, but Obviously, he's not going to be 100%. Zach Martin hasn't practiced this week.
I mean, it just keeps getting worse for that team, John.
Yeah. So, and obviously, Dak Prescott, I assume people know he's not going to play. So that's the most notable one. Yeah, everything's set up for the Eagles. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, how about the Eagles injuries, John? Any update? It looks like everybody might end up playing
Everybody's
in this
back.
game.
Everybody's back. So, they're the exact opposite. They had the long injury report on Wednesday. So, I think people got concerned, but it was all just sort of load management stuff for the most part. The three guys who didn't practice at all were Fred Johnson, Nolan Smith, Ben Van Sumeren. Brad says he's playing. So, and he was back out there yesterday. Nolan says he's playing, and he was back out there yesterday. Now, Ben was also practicing, but he's in the concussion protocol, so that's a little bit different. I know he wants to play. I know he could play. But again, we've said that numerous times. That's out of the Eagles' hands. And he's got to go through the protocol, which tends to be difficult these days in 1 week. But he feels fine. So they're about as healthy as you can be, besides the typical, nicks and bruises. Saquon obviously said he's fine. He's playing, no issues. Mackay saw him getting his ankle taped, but he's playing. AJ's out there. Bryce Huff said he's fine and he's playing. That's an interesting story. He said he could have played last week. Dallas is going. Dallas Goedert, so he'll be back. Cam Jurgens was back at practice. Slay has practiced both days and is back to being full, so he should be back. Josh Sweat, there was a little bit of concern with him. He popped up. He was back. So, yeah, almost a full go, with the exception of the concussion protocol thing with Ben. Compared to the Dallas, that's pretty good.
Yeah, good stuff. And it looks like Micah might be back for the Cowboys this weekend, right? He practiced yesterday in full pad. Yeah, so
I
we'll
think
see
he's going to play.
Yeah,
And that does, and I know from talking to Nick and everybody, Jonathan Gannon, Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, and now Vic. I mean, just how good of a defensive player he is. And then from the offensive perspective, all the offensive coaches from Nick to Shane and Brian Johnson and now Kellen Moore, everybody is worried about him first and foremost.
Yeah.
And game planning about him.
Yeah, we'll see what he's able to do. John, we got a super chat about last night. I'm going to ask you about last night's game as well. Prince Swayze checks in. Cowboys have not won a single game home this season. Yeah, we should be able to take advantage of them again.
Green Bay broke them, by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
They were undefeated last year going into the playoffs.
They were undefeated for I think longer than a year, weren't they? It was like dating back.
Yeah,
they were
the best. They were I don't know how far it dated back, but last year they were undefeated. They were the best team at home in the NFL, and Green Bay went in there, Aaron Jones specifically, and destroyed them. That's why I was so concerned. That's why I was wondering why Green Bay gave up on Aaron Jones. And it's working out for both. Aaron's having a very good year, and Josh Jacobs is performing well. So I guess they got younger. But anyway, yeah, Green Bay seems to have broke them.
Yeah, good stuff there. Josh B., I see your super chat about Johnny Mac's tweet that got some juice yesterday. We will talk about that in just a second. Before I do that, Prince Swayze checks in. Good morning. The Bengals lost to the Chiefs by 1 and the Ravens by 1, but they lost to the Eagles by 20. Am I missing something here? Zander, Prince, I don't think at all.
You may have heard me say the transitive property does not work in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
The assumption that teams play the same against everybody is probably the most flawed fan thing there is, and the assumption that any team plays the same themselves each and every week is incredibly flawed. So, yeah, you can't say, oh, the Eagles destroyed Cincinnati. They played Baltimore by 1 point. The Eagles are better than Baltimore. That's the transitive property. Good luck with that. I mean, they, Eagles played well. Cincinnati did not. Cincinnati played well, at least offensively. Probably should have won the game. Got screwed at the end.
Yeah, what'd you make of all the coaching stuff? A lot of talk about Zach Taylor again last night. Kind of reminds me
Yeah,
of
he
Nick
did the right
Sirianni
thing.
conversation. I think he went for
Unquestionably.
it on almost every
Did
fourth down.
maybe learn from doing the wrong thing against the Eagles. Did the right thing. They came in that game, and for those who watched it, Al Michaels and Herb Street said, with their production meetings, they were very focused. They knew they had to score points to win in Baltimore, so they were going to be very aggressive. They went for a fourth down early in the game, as opposed to being non-aggressive versus the Eagles. So they shifted gears. They did the right thing. Sometimes it doesn't work out. They had 2 penalties on the 2-point conversion that would have won the game. They missed them both. It's not much you can do. But so that's when we talk about good decisions don't guarantee good outcomes. They made the right decision. They got a poor outcome, but you can't control. What was the other game who got the quarterback got knocked in the face at the end of the game? Like that stuff is egregious from an officiating standpoint, because the quarterback is right in the middle of the field. Everybody's watching, not the officials. They have their little, but you have the 2 officials watching.
Yeah, that was
play.
the Darnold. That was the Darnold play in the end zone.
Sam Darnold against. Now they were probably not going to win the game. In this case, Cincinnati was going to win the game. He got smacked right in the face. Nothing. And then before that, there was a hold on the receiver, which should have been called. And I think Terry McCauley's Amazon's official, and he said both should have been called. And Al Michaels, at his age, is just frustrated. He's like, every week there's this. And I get why fans are frustrated. Yeah. I get why fans are frustrated. I never blame things on the officials because it's baked into it. I mean, it's very difficult.
Doesn't it feel like it's getting to a little bit of a bigger level now, though? Because I'm normally with you where it's like, all right, every game is going to be officiated. They're humans. They're not going to get everything right. But
yeah,
I mean,
it's such an easy fix. That's the frustrating part for me. Because if you drop this bullshit that we didn't create, the sky judge or whatever you want to call what they do in college. If you drop this bullshit and say, all right, it makes sense to do that, you correct it right away. Now, Baltimore fans are going to be upset in that instance, but who cares? I mean, if your goal is to try to get it right, and I think that's supposed to be the goal, it's easy to get it right. Just say, hey, stop the game, say, hey guys, he got smacked in the face, because the holding call, even though it was pretty clear, that's still a judgment 50-50. I don't even care if they ignore that. But when the quarterback gets smacked in the face in front of everybody, and this is the second time in a month, and you miss it, just fix it.
Right.
You got all these people in New York, and this is a standalone game. You don't have to worry about 16 games or whatever going on at the same time. Fix it.
I know. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. And it's also, not specifically here, but the over legislation of the game that you've been talking about for years is just
and that makes it harder on officials.
Exactly. That's what makes it harder, because now there's 4 million things that have to be called on any given play. Let's keep rolling here. Prince Swayze says, I got you, Prince. I see what you were saying. He says, I understand it relates to the transitive property. However, I'm referring to the Bengals side of it, since we haven't beaten anyone. So the narrative is, John, Eagles' schedule sucks again, and the combined record of their opponents this year is like 13 and 30 or something.
I say the same thing all the time. In 2022, everybody said they didn't beat anybody. Well, if you don't think anybody else is anybody, they're never going to beat anybody. some of these, I find the fans that say they haven't beat anybody are the fans that think, well, Detroit is the only team that would mean anything. All right, well, they're never going to beat them until they have an opportunity to beat Detroit.
Yeah, right.
And hopefully they're not going to beat anybody. If they beat Washington, you're going to hear, well, they're not ready from that group of people I'm talking about. Well, it's a rookie quarterback. They're not ready. All of a sudden, they're going to become nobodies. And how I described it in 2022 is that the Eagles turn somebodies into nobodies, because after games, people would say, oh, they're nobody. If you think everybody's a nobody, you can never beat a somebody, I would say to those people.
That's a fair takeaway, John. We got another super chat on your tweet last night, which got some juice, Johnny Mac. Almost a 500,000 views on
tweet is this.
Your tweet about the NFL deleting the mic'd up video.
Oh, yeah. That figures. That's nothing tweet, but
yeah, I know, but I want to ask you what you think about it. Yeah, I mean, because you said weird. I didn't know what you were talking about. That they deleted it? You thought it was weird?
I deleted it, yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. No, yeah, a lot of people, I should know it's Twitter. X. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elon. X.
Well, Josh B says, not really having fun. Is it sarcasm, professionalism, just a weird dude?
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about why they deleted it. There was nothing wrong with anything he said in the video.
Yeah, I do find it funny how people, like, I don't have an issue with Jalen doing that, but I do find it funny how people try and turn it into this big thing. But I guess we should know this based on what happened last year.
Well, and that's why I thought it was weird that they deleted it. Like, because she set off those people.
Like, now maybe this is an extreme comparison, but I think of Kobe. Remember after Kobe won the first 2 games in the NBA Finals, and they're talking to him in the press room, and he's like, "You don't seem happy." He's like, "I'm not happy. What the hell is there to be happy about? Job's not finished." And I'm not saying that's what Jalen Hurts is going for, but
I think
it's funny how in that moment everyone's like, "Oh, I love Kobe," and then when Jalen does it, it's like he's a weirdo because he's not having fun mid game.
Yeah.
By the way, they should have been blowing that team out. Maybe he was pissed about that.
By the way, I should have known. I should have said it was weird. They took it down. I should have put those extra words on there, because that's what I was referring to. And I don't know why they took it down. I asked some people. Nobody knew. No, nobody. That would be at the highest levels, so nobody's going to know. But yeah, it was weird that they took it down. And then they put it back up. Probably when a couple of us noticed it was down, and we said it was weird, basically.
So for the people, not everybody saw the video. So Prince says, what did he say? Basically, after Jalen threw that deep ball touchdown to Devontae Smith, the one in the end zone, which was a pretty insane catch by Devontae, Lane said to him, like, "You look like you're smiling. You having fun or something?" And he kind of said, "Not really." He didn't really care about having fun out there in that moment. I didn't have an issue with it at all.
Yeah, I had no issue with what Jalen said. I was, speaking of, but a bunch of us were talking about it. That's the mentality, right? 10-1, the most miserable team. Jalen's never having fun. That was a narrative. So from our standpoint, our job is to ask questions, and you start to say, well, did somebody say take this down? Again, nobody knows. Nobody even knew, from the Eagles that it was taken down from my perspective. But again, that would be at the highest level if you're getting them to take it down. And if that did happen, that's dumb by the Eagles. There's nothing wrong with what he said. Nothing wrong with what he did. That is his personality. Who cares at the end of the day? He is hyper focused. He's not going to be the cheery, high energy. Everybody knows this. They see him. It's not his personality. Nothing wrong with it. The only thing wrong with it is they took it down for some weird reason. And they took it down off 2 accounts. They took it off I guess it was inside the NFL clip. So they took it off.
I don't know. Maybe it's not that weird, honestly. I mean, just the organization trying to protect the perspective, even whether it's right or wrong.
That was our thought, that the organization is trying to shut down this narrative that would have developed. And I don't know if that's what happened, but
which,
to me, you're creating a potential issue.
Do they
instead of
care too much about that? Like, and I'm
oh
not we don't
God,
know if they did, but, like, why do they even
God,
give a
yeah,
shit, man?
God, yeah, God, yeah, they care too much. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. You're creating a problem that doesn't exist if you did that. And I don't know if they did it, but
Right.
could be a host of reasons. Inside the NFL might have said something for some reason. I don't know why they would. Uh, it was the official NFL account. It wasn't like it was the Eagles account. And it was back after a number of us pointed out it was gone. It's just weird. Weird.
Yeah, it was a kind of a weird situation. I thought it was a cool video though. And that was a great play, by the way, for
There's
Devontae Smith.
nothing wrong. Let me emphasize this. There's nothing wrong with the video or anything Jalen Hurts said. That's why it's weird.
It does feel like people reach on shit with Jalen
Oh my
sometimes.
God, they reach on shit. That's the whole point.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I feel I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm in Philly, but it does feel like that there's a little bit of a slanted treatment on stuff like that. Like really? Now we're talking about Jalen talking to Lane Johnson mid play on the field. Like, I don't give a shit, dude. Just go out there and play good football and and keep doing what you're doing. I
Well,
mean,
yeah. I mean, and to be fair, that happens to every quarterback in every city. But yeah, there's definitely way too much emphasis on shit like that. No
yeah,
question about it.
no doubt about it. John, I'm going to ask you. Looking at this game with the Cowboys coming up, where is the positive for this Cowboys team? Like, they have no Dak. I guess you get Micah back, but other than that, I don't. This team, their defense sucks. Their offense has not been good, and now you don't have Dak and maybe not CD. I mean, they got like nothing going for them right now, and that's kind of why it brings you into the
That's
trap
where
game.
you got to be. Yeah, human
But
nature. That's why you got to be careful.
really, just feels like they got nothing, John.
It felt like Jacksonville had nothing. They had a chance to win the game with
I never felt like
one
this
throw.
about Jacksonville.
Really? Jacksonville was freak dead in the water. I mean,
I
they had
know, but
no
they had Trevor
receivers.
Lawrence still. I mean, they had,
They had
I
one receiver that couldn't play, but was playing because they had no other receivers. Um, yeah, they did have their starting quarterback.
which I think matters most. I mean, yesterday I got into a debate and I was
Well, if you're
asked.
going to boil it down to just the quarterback, yes, they were in a better situation. But I think it was more than that. I mean, they were incredibly banged up.
Yeah.
Um, and very similar situation, except they're even worse from a talent perspective to start. Yeah, I thought Jacksonville was even deader in the water, if that's possible. But yeah, I mean, and the Eagles should have beaten them and did for the vast majority of the game, beat them pretty handily. But again, we go back to the officials. Unfortunately, I hate talking about officials, and I'm only talking about officials. The Saquon play doesn't happen. It's probably nobody's talking about all this other stuff because it's an easy win, but it happens. And by the Saquon play, I'm talking not the jump, the fumble.
Yeah.
It's a bad call. What are you going to do? There's not much you can do about it.
I mean, we had Todd Archer on last night on our Thursday night show this week in pro football with Pat Callahan. Todd Archer is the ESPN reporter for the Cowboys, similar to like Tim McManus is for the Eagles for ESPN. And he came on and he's like, yeah, the best part of this Cowboys team right now, the best thing they have going for them, is their kicker, Brandon Aubrey. And as
Yeah, he's
great as
pretty good
Brandon
too,
is,
man.
you never want your kicker to be the best thing you have going for you. And that kind of gives you the state of the Cowboys. And he said that, and I'm like, oh boy, even the guys who are covering them are just saying this team is
Well,
not in a good spot.
remember the Cowboys are used to having success, so that
Yeah, I mean, 3
factors
straight seasons
into
of
it.
12
Yeah,
wins. I mean, they're normally a competent team.
yeah, that factors into it as well. Whereas Jacksonville's not used to having that kind of success, but so that everybody thought the Cowboys were going to be a contender again. A lot of people thought they'd be out in the first round again, and certainly, Jerry Jones has made some poor decisions, but everybody harped on Jerry in the offseason for, waiting and not paying this guy, but he pays them in the end, as I warned everyone. And he admitted he likes to keep his team in the headlines. He's a moron. But, they still had a bunch of good players, and things have gone in a negative direction from an injury standpoint. And the Eagles need to take advantage of it. But, Micah Parsons alone, if he's coming back, I mean, that's one of the 2 or 3 best defensive players in football. And everybody says it. I know Eagles fans don't like to hear it, but again, the Eagles defensive coaches, the Eagles offensive coaches, one of the few times I've heard them, I always talk about the Eagles' cockiness, their hubris. They think they're, when people say, oh, they're going to do this, are they worried about this? The answer 99% of the time is no. They're not worried about it. Insert cornerback versus A.J. Brown, not worried about it. Insert, can we run the ball in the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL? Go back to 2021. They did it 3 times. Not worried about it. With Micah, the whole thing is, if you can't block him, read him. They acknowledge they can't block him.
Or run at his ass. He can't stop the run very well either.
Well, that's part of the
reading them.
If you can't block them, read them. And they try to take advantage of that. And they have, for the most part. They've been pretty successful about it. But I mean, very rare. That I'm trying to give people an example of what they think about that particular player. They don't admit that kind of stuff usually. And they admit it with him.
Yep. John, another big storyline, I think, in this game is going to be Saquon Barkley. Could be giving away another jersey this week, everybody, depending on how close this game is and how much Saquon plays. But that Cowboys run defense, not good. Their first-round draft pick from a couple of years ago, Mozzie Smith, not good.
Yeah, that hasn't worked out for him.
No, it has not worked out for him at all. They're rushing. I'll give you some stats on their run defense and kind of get your perspective on what we think Saquon's going to do in this game. They are rushing yards allowed per game. They're up to 147.8, which is ranked 30th in the NFL. Rushing first downs allowed per game is 9.1, 31st in the NFL. Rushing touchdowns allowed, they've given up 13 rushing touchdowns, 31st in the NFL. Rushing yards per attempt allowed is at 4.6, it's 23rd in the NFL. And then opponent rushing attempts per game, 31.9. Teams just running all over the Cowboys. That's 31st in the NFL. I mean, they can't stop the run on defense at all. Could this be another big day for Saquon Barkley, John?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, obviously it could be. I do, and I go back to Baltimore because Baltimore is last in the NFL in passing defense. Part of that is because nobody can run on them with Madubuike inside. I mean, Roquan, and nobody can run on them, so they don't bother trying. Sort of like the opposite with Dallas. But now, because Dallas has all the playmakers in the secondary, but now they don't have playmakers in the secondary. If Bland's not out there, Diggs is not out there. So, I think this is one of those games where you just see how it's going and you take advantage of what's going. Because right now they can't lean on anything. Like Baltimore can lean on their run defense and and then all of a sudden Jamar Chase is getting 264 yards passing yardage, which is unbelievable, by the way. So a lot of it is baked into that, but now they don't have Bland and they don't have Diggs. And it's like, maybe, if Andrew Booth is going to be out there, maybe you take advantage of that. So the Eagles are in a good position to where they should be able to do essentially a bunch of different things. And then you go with the hot hand. Is basically, and that's for their basic philosophy every week.
Yeah, right. Take what the defense is giving or what's working on any given Sunday. I just do think that running story is going to be interesting. Now, Micah, we mentioned Micah coming back, John. I like that matchup for them because you don't have Mailata out there. What do you expect to see from how they scheme Micah up? Maybe they try and, get him a mismatch. Last year, I think I remember they got him on Tyler Steen a lot, who filled in for.
Yeah, well, they should. They should try to take advantage. I don't think they've done that enough.
Yeah, under Zimmer. It's been less under Zimmer, I think, with last year they had Dan Quinn.
And I don't even think they did it enough with Dan Quinn. To me, if I were a defensive coordinator, I mean, basically because of Micah's versatility, I'd pick the worst offensive lineman and just say, all right, that's who I'm going. That's where I'm going. Because he can rush inside, he can rush outside, he can rush both sides. Remember, they drafted him to be an off-ball linebacker, which is they get way too much credit for that, by the way. Because they were like everybody else. Oh, he's too short to be a pass rusher. His arms are too short to be a pass rusher. They were like everybody else. They thought he was going to be an off-ball linebacker.
I hope we shut his ass out so I can
know
yell,
you
I can
don't
yell
like
at you and Kerr on Monday.
You don't like Micah Parsons.
No, I like him. I like him. I don't think he's generational.
I'm talking about the player. And he can do, and everybody, and I'm kind of proud of that because I said he was an edge rusher. Jody can tell you that. I said he was an edge rusher the whole way. So that's one I got right, but it mystified me. It was sort of like Hassan Reddick all over again. It really was. It was like everybody's like turning this great pass rusher. Well, but he can't do it at this level because in Micah's case, his arms were too short. And I'm like, well, let's see if he can't do it at this level. Because they a lot of people said the same stuff about Aaron Donald. Oh, he's too small. And Aaron Donald turned into Aaron Donald.
Yeah,
so
right.
There's some guys who are so gifted physically, and he's that type of guy. So anyway, I don't think Dan Quinn used him right. I don't think Micah Zimmer's using him right. And he's still basically one of the 2 or 3 best defensive players in the game. So
you still think you still got him as a generational talent?
Oh God, yeah. Like I just said, the one thing, look at all well, I say this all the time because I got to cover Randy Moss and Adrian Peterson. Those are the 2 guys. Now I get to cover Saquon Barkley. You saw the reaction to the Saquon Barkley play from his teammates, from I think it was Shield Kapati said, from the 1% of the 1%. That's always when I know when these guys are in awe of somebody, and they are with Saquon. So that'll make Eagles fans happy. But they're in awe of Micah. Same way. Again, you never hear the Eagles talk about players like they talk about Micah Parsons. That's when it clicks and it says, all right, this guy's special. This guy's special. And there's very few in that category. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a Hall of Fame player like Randy Moss, because Michael Vick had the same gravitas, and he's not a Hall of Fame level player. People are just awed by his athleticism. But he's not at that level of player as like a Randy Moss was, as an example of somebody who I covered, who's, first ballot, no doubt about Hall of Famer at his particular position. Mike is, though. He's already produced at that level. So, yeah, I know Eagles fans don't like it. They love it if they were able to get him. Trust me, he's phenomenal. You can't block him.
I don't know, man. I get it. I know he's a great player, and I'm not saying you're wrong about some of the way we criticize him and how much we love. It'd be like Saquon, right? We used to criticize Saquon. Now he's here, and we love him to death. But we had Tony Casillas on, former 2nd overall pick, guy who played in Dallas a long time, and he had a lot of harsh words to say about Micah Parsons. He said, and the reason he had harsh words is because he's this unbelievable talented player, and he's not doing what he needs to do to extract all that talent.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to pick on Tony Casillas, but I mean, what more could he do Now this year he's been hurt, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not talking about more this year. I mean, he said he
So,
doesn't show up when they need him the most. In the
well,
biggest
yeah,
game.
well, they're talking about the playoffs. Sorry, he's the best defensive player in football, and they lose in the playoffs, and it's his fault.
Well,
You know,
Tony didn't say that. No, I can put words.
well,
Into
I'm talking about. I'm not saying you said it.
Yeah.
This is all right. Let's look. 2023, so his second year. I wouldn't even look at his rookie year because they started at him at off-ball linebacker like a bunch of morons. 16 sacks, 19 quarterback hits, 71 hurries. 71 freaking hurries. 2020, 74 hurries. I mean, these numbers are unfathomable. I mean, they're just ridiculous.
Eagles have a tall task blocking him this week, John, with no Mailata.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a tall.
I mean, they're just going to line him up on Fred, though, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. They typically don't take advantage of that. I criticize Dan as much as they should.
I mean, they can line him up on Lane Johnson. They can
line him up on Cam Jurgens if they wanted to. That's how versatile he is. I don't think the Cowboys have taken up advantage of that type of thing. Now, he's been out. He's had an ankle injury. He's limited. I don't know if he's going to be 100%. But yeah, I can't get on board with the people that criticize him. And some of it's the podcast and his personality and all that crap.
Oh, that's definitely a big part of it.
Which I don't care about. You know, I was talking about stops with Zach Bond yesterday because I don't care about tackles. You know, if they're 7 yards down the field and things like that. This guy gets 58 stops last year, 42 stops, and he's playing on the line. I mean, yeah, yeah, they haven't succeeded. It's the same thing. He's the defensive Lamar, basically. You know, Lamar gets criticized, the best player in the world, Lamar Jackson. Anybody saw him last night? He's the best football player in the world. All due respect to Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson is the best football player in the world. He's going to win the MVP again if he continues at this level. And nobody's going to give a shit until he wins in the playoffs. Everybody's going to criticize him. That's what Mike has been defensively. You don't see those numbers. But until he wins in the playoffs, people are going to criticize, which I get, but doesn't mean he's not a good player. He's not out there by himself.
No doubt. John, another guy that's pretty good in the Cowboys team. I don't know if he's going to play or not yet. CeeDee Lamb, do we have an update? I mean, I think he practiced.
I think he's going to play, but
yeah,
again, he's limited. He practiced. He was limited Wednesday and Thursday. I assume he's going to try to play. But he's got an AC joint injury, so there's no way he's going to be 100%. I think it's going to be similar to Brian Thomas last week. You know, he played, but he wasn't his self. He wasn't his effective self. I expect the same thing from CeeDee Lamb this week. So,
well, I mean, I'll just give you some stats. Last year, CeeDee Lamb in his 2 games versus the Eagles, he combined for 17 catches for 262 yards. So he had his way with the birds last year. What's the game plan to kind of take him out of it? If you take him out, I don't know where they can beat you on offense.
Yeah, well, they're in trouble, and they can't run the ball, so they can't just sort of manage their way through the game with Cooper Rush. Yeah, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. What do you have? 262, you said?
262 in 2 games. With the 1 game, remember, he had 11 catches for 191.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Jamar Chase last night because he had 263 last night. And 262 in 2 games is pretty.
Your take on
good.
Jamar Chase is proving to be correct for the people that had an issue with it.
Well, the Eagles did a good job to transit a property. They did a good job on him. And the Eagles deserve credit for that, but that is one hell of a player, Jamar Chase.
264, I think he had last night.
264? Yeah. I knew he was in the 260s.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, CD's a very good player, but he's not healthy. So that's a big advantage. Um, they, the Cowboys are bad at running back. They're banged up at receiver. Their offensive line. Zach Martin's going to Hall of Fame. He hasn't practiced this week. Defensive line, linebackers, secondary. Eagles should have an advantage at every position because of the way things are physically for Dallas. Every position. And the Eagles will have everybody available with the exception of perhaps Ben Van Sumeren. And they'd like to have him available because they love him as a fullback now. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough to lose this game. And same thing with Jacksonville. How do you lose the game? Something crazy's got to happen. Something crazy did happen in the Jacksonville game that gave Jacksonville an opportunity. Right. Something like that's going to have to happen.
Well, I gave you the stats for the Cowboys rushing defense and made the case for why Saquon might have a good day. You just mentioned the rushing offense. Rushing yards per game, 82, 31st in the NFL. Rushing first downs per game, 5.3, 28th in the NFL. Rushing touchdowns, 3, 31st in the NFL. Yards per rush, 3.8, 30th in the NFL. Rushing attempts per game, 21.6, 32nd in the NFL. They can't rush the ball very well, John. I mean, it's CeeDee Lamb or bust in this game for the Cowboys offense.
And I know they're all upset because they didn't get Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but Todd Archer spoke about that last night. He's like, if people think Derrick Henry would be doing in Dallas what he's doing in
well, I agree.
Right
Nobody
now,
thinks that way. Todd's 100% right. I talk about it all the time. The assumption that, I used to go back to the Jefferson Rager discussion. The assumption that Jefferson would have put up the numbers that he put up with the high volume quarterback and the guy.
No, yeah, he wouldn't have. We had Hurts and at that time I guess we had Wentz still, right?
Yeah. It's insanity, but people believe that. They assume, well, he got 1,600 yards here, so he's going to get saved. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Maybe Jefferson could have saved Wentz. Maybe Jefferson could have saved Wentz's career in Philly, John. Remember that last year?
He would have been really good. I'm not trying to defend the Eagles.
Well, I mean, look, a lot was made of that 4-win season with Carson, his last one, and he had Rager and Fulgham he was throwing to.
Well, in this case with Derrick Henry, and Todd's 100% right, but he would have been a hell of a lot better than what they're rolling out there. That's the point. But yeah, he's absolutely right that he wouldn't be doing what he's doing in Baltimore with Dallas. But that's not how fans see it. They just translate it to that production into Dallas, which is, again, back to the transit of property. It doesn't work that way.
Pretty crazy stuff. John, any other things that you look at when you look at this game from afar, just that stick out to you? I mean, we talked about the two big players on Dallas with Micah and CD. Outside of those two guys, I mean, not very good for them. Anything else that sticks out to you that could make a difference in this game?
They're not from their perspective. They're in deep.
Maybe Brandon Aubrey has like 460 yards.
65 yarder to win it. They might have the advantage. If either team needs a 65 yarder to win it, I like the Cowboys there. That's about maybe the only advantage.
If we get to that position, the Eagles did a lot wrong to get to that position. If that's how it ends up.
Yeah, well, again, you're going to have something crazy, but something crazy happens, it seems, in every NFL game. So, and something crazy happened against Jacksonville, and there they were, taking a shot to win the game. A bad shot, but taking a shot to win the game. Happens all the time in the NFL. I don't think it's going to happen here, but I didn't think it was going to happen last week, and certainly didn't think it was going to happen after it was 22-0 and they gave up 36 yards with 9 minutes left in the third quarter. I was pretty comfortable saying, Eagles are going to win this game. And Jacksonville got a shot, and people can blame, Nick Sirianni, as most people, whatever you want to blame it on. They had a shot. By the way, Joe Banner, did you see Joe Banner? Joe Banner coming to my rescue. Thanks, Joe, by the way.
I think I did see that about the aggressiveness with the coaches and how it's been what things people that have used for years. I did see that.
Yeah. Well, and Joe, to his credit, is he started it. So he takes pride in that. He should, by the way. I'm going to read his post. Sorry. It's my second time I had to apologize to Elon today. So annoyed by people that make a note every time the Eagles are aggressive and it doesn't work, without noticing all the times, which is huge in parentheses, that being aggressive has been a huge part of their persona that has led to huge success. Shouldn't use huge twice, but you understand. Going back 30 years, aggressive organizations win. Joe Banner coming to my rescue. Thank you, Joe.
I still don't think I agree with it, but I agree with it to in a sense, but I don't agree with it to the
30 and Joe's defense, 30 years isn't that big of Zander's defense, 30 years isn't that big of a sample size. Actually,
that's big enough.
Actually, I'm being facetious.
Yeah,
it is. So annoyed. That's Joe Banner. That's why I'm in the concussion protocol. In constant concussion protocol.
Yeah, you might want to.
I'm not annoyed as much as I'm frustrated. Like I really don't understand why people don't get that. I really don't. It mystifies me.
Well, can you just at least understand whether you believe it's right or wrong? And I know you believe it's wrong. That why people would look at it and be like, why in that moment would you go that route? I know that they don't believe that's the right way to win, and that's their philosophy. But do you at least understand where some people are coming from?
No, well, I understand the same thing happened to Cincinnati last night. I get it in the moment. I get it in the moment. I really don't get why people can't step away from the moment, at least after the moment, a week after, 2 weeks, when the emotions die down. That's the part I can't get, that they don't see how much it has helped the team overall. That's the part I don't get. After the emotion dies down, I get in the moment. Yeah, they want every play to be successful. I get that.
Yeah.
If it's a failure, the immediate default setting is bad play call, bad decision, whatever, whichever, both in the moment. I get that completely. I don't understand why people don't recognize after that emotion dies down that it's been pretty helpful for this team to be aggressive, to say the least.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get to a super chat here. Jason, appreciate it, man. Jason, A-Team checks in. Is it the same for Jalen as it is Lamar? Does Jalen get judged by playoff wins, or does he still get judged in season because people doubt his throwing? I mean,
I don't know. By the way, Greg Cosell, my little back and forth with Jalen Hurts, a lot of people were talking about that after the game, where I said he's got a knack for the deep ball. And he said, well, it's the first time he's heard that, which I find that hard to believe, because I know a bunch of people that think he's really good at throwing the deep ball. And Greg Cosell's been getting killed for pointing out the things that Jalen needs to improve on. And he was out there saying, he throws a great deep ball. Even Greg Cosell, he throws a great deep ball. Like, who are these people who say Jalen Hurts doesn't throw a good deep ball?
I think that's part of the art of sports nowadays, John. The athletes create, whether it's good or bad. I mean, they create the narratives.
Yeah,
So like the underdog mentality, right? Everybody doubts me.
Yeah. So getting back to the question, is it the same for Jalen as it is Lamar? Well, it's the same for every quarterback. Number one. They get nitpicked to death in any city. Good quarterbacks, bad quarterbacks, mediocre quarterbacks get nitpicked to death. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's ironic. Now, playoffs, certainly, because Jalen has had some success in the playoffs, some failures, as everyone does. Even Tom Brady has failures in the playoffs. But Lamar hasn't had huge run in the playoffs. So I think that part of it's worse for him. Like Jalen played so well on the biggest stage. Now there's some idiots who point out the unforced error in the Super Bowl and take everything good he did in that game away because of one play. I think most people realize he played at a very high level on the biggest stage, a very high level, arguably his best game ever. I really believe that. I believe he was the best player on the field, which I said after the game. I continue to say today. I think he was the best player on the field in the Super Bowl. And the Eagles didn't win the game. So, not a lot of people agree with that because if you don't win, nobody's going to give you credit for playing well for the most part. It's just what it is. But Lamar hasn't had that kind of performance in the playoffs. But Lamar's the best player in the world.
He's going to,
I
to
firmly
the
believe
AFC
that.
too. You think he's better than Patrick?
Yes.
Talent-wise?
Oh, God, yes. Well, he's better than everybody talent-wise. God, yes. Nobody has that talent. Did you see that play?
I mean, he's an insane athlete, but you think he's like a better quarterback than Patrick?
I think he's the best player in the world. So,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, he can. I get a kick out of it because he's so good running the football. Like people think he can't throw that. He makes some throws that are ridiculous.
He does. You're not wrong about that. I mean, he does make some absurd throws.
He can do everything at an ultra high level. It hasn't always been that way. He grew early in his career. He was way too focused on the tight ends because he felt comfortable, and he had a difficult time getting it outside the numbers. At this stage right now, he can make every throw. He makes every throw. He makes these plays that are, and Patrick does that a lot too. It's not, and people are going to take it as a criticism. Patrick makes unbelievable plays that nobody else can make. But if you force me to pick one again, and it's not in a vacuum, and they have the same situation, right now, Lamar Jackson is the best player in the world. Now, Patrick Mahomes has the team success and all the Super Bowl rings, so most people aren't going to agree with that. And
if you were starting a franchise right now, though, and they put every NFL player in a big draft, and you had the number 1 overall pick, you taking Lamar over Patrick?
I probably wouldn't take either of them. I'd probably take one. I'd probably take Jaden Daniels if it's about growing. That's different to me.
What?
If I'm starting a team right now, they're not good. I'm trying to grow.
Yeah, I more meant like if they did like a redraft the whole thing.
You're saying a vacuum where everybody's playing with the same player and everybody's in the exact same situation, I'm taking Lamar because he's the best player in the world right now at this moment, this snapshot. I used to say the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers was the best player in the world for a very long time. And he's got 1 Super Bowl. So, he's not playing by himself.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I would have taken Aaron Rodgers over Tom Brady. I know you're right. Aaron was more talented than Tom for sure.
In the same vacuum, everybody's got the same team, which is never going to happen.
Right.
Same situation. Aaron's going to be more successful because he's better. But it doesn't work that way. And there are plenty of other people trying to win Super Bowls. It's not just quarterback against quarterback. If it was, it would be easy to pick who was going to win.
Yeah, no doubt. John, we got a super chat here. You are going to like this one because I like it. I agree with it. F Body Guy checks in. You might not agree with everything J-Mac has to say, but I guarantee you that all of y'all have repeated a J-Mac talking point around your friends. I definitely do.
Well, I tend to be logical. I try to be logical. I think that's my greatest attribute because I don't care if this team wins or loses. It doesn't matter.
That's what makes you good. That's what makes you.
It doesn't matter to me. And by that, there's a lot of people I like on this team and I root for on a personal level in the organization. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's like you can root for people, and root for people to have success, individuals, and take it away from the team success because the team success encompasses everything and everybody. And it's easy, like the Jalen Hurts point I made about playing in the Super Bowl. Like, how people can watch that game and say, well, he didn't win, and say take away from his performance is, it's mind-boggling to me. All right, he still played the way he played. But I do realize there's a lot of emotion in football games and fans. And I do realize the emotion clouds it, especially in the moment. But I think it's pretty easy afterwards to acknowledge what's going on. And I think if you look at it that way, it makes it easier.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. F-Body, appreciate the super chat, man. Some nice words for Johnny Mac. I appreciate you checking in, my brother. Let's take our first commercial break here, Johnny Mac. We're getting Les Bowen in hour number 2. Looking forward to talking to Les in he'll be here.
I should have sent the reminder text. I didn't learn there. I'm not learning from my own mistakes, by the way. What you got to do?
What's the logical Johnny Mac take on that? That you
well,
didn't learn
the logical is I got too much shit to do. And I forget.
Yeah. Johnny Mac's doing a lot of shit. All right, everybody. We appreciate y'all being here. Hit that like button for us. Appreciate all of our super chats. Appreciate everybody in here. Dank Bird Gang, good to see you. Cali Baby, Dream Green, Mike Cannon. Appreciate you, Mike. Kenny P. We got a couple Kennys. I think Kenny P and one other Kenny in here. Snake Eyes, Prince Swayze, Eduardo. Appreciate everybody being here, man. Hit that like button, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Before I get to the break, let me tell you about BetUS, the great people at BetUS. Check out the promo code I just put on your screen. It's YouTube 150. It gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So go check out BetUS. It's betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. Use that promo code YouTube 150. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.